Oh hi, I'm the heretic. So in the wake of the riots, people are trying to figure out a cause. Well, if you've been paying even a modicum of attention to what's been happening from what people are saying on social media, and you understand the power relation between the state and the people, as well as the state's bottomless, voracious lust for power, well, it's obvious. Government agencies, especially the police, are actively pouring gasoline on the fires of discontent by attacking protesters and directly engaging in property damage as police officers, uniformed, plainclothes, and disguised as rioters, provoke police responses by engaging in violence themselves. This is all done to reinforce the perception of the government as the bringers of law and order, even though they're actively antagonistic to both, to justify increased violations of your rights in the name of a pinky promise for security, or, at the bare minimum, it's a way for legislation enforcers to scare politicians into increasing their budgets. Either way, if you understand how the state works and its desire for power, this should be pretty easy to figure out. For those who still operate under the statist framework of understanding reality, well, they're left grasping at straws and come to rather silly conclusions, like Donald Trump being an anarchist. This is an opinion piece from the Washington Post. Donald Trump is the real anarchist. Not even asking a leading question, just coming right out and stating your conclusion. I get it. I understand. But yeah, it kind of sucks that I'm not a real anarchist. The only real anarchist is Donald Trump, apparently. If it doesn't sound like I'm taking this piece seriously, it's because I'm not. The author does nothing to establish that Trump has any ideological, philosophical, or methodological opposition to the existence of government. No expose about any interactions he might have had with anarchist philosophers past or present, nor any explanation about certain policy positions and how they are consistent with the proposals put forward by actual anarchists. Given how diverse a field anarchist philosophy is, this could actually have been an interesting exploration, an unconventional attempt to figure out what Trump's philosophical underpinnings are from an anarchist lens. Given his repeated calls for violating property rights, initiating force on peaceful people, confiscating legitimately owned property, and inability to roll back the extent of the state's victimization of us and its violation of our rights, coming to that conclusion is not possible. To say nothing of the problem of anarchists seeking political office at all. We recognize political rule as illegitimate, and therefore make its eradication our desired end goal. Elections make acceptable political rule as the only means by which desired end goals are achieved within politicized spheres. Read every waking aspect of your life. Participation, either as candidates or voters, even on a platform of eliminating government, is a performative contradiction of anarchist praxis. A political candidate may call themselves an anarchist, but their actions betray anarchism. For this reason alone, Trump can't be an anarchist, even if we completely ignore his long history of political statements, actions, and policy proposals that no actual anarchist would espouse unironically. So what basis is there for calling Trump an anarchist? Well, according to the author,
what has happened to our nation over both the past 3.5 years and the past week is exactly what we would expect to happen if the person in charge has no stated beliefs other than his self-interest, and little agenda other than tearing down the accomplishments of others. Trump possesses no sense of the gravity of the office he holds, no belief in its greater purpose. The welfare of the public barely registers with Trump.
It goes into more specifics, but that's the gist of it. Basically, accusing Trump of not using government violence and coercion enough. And when he does do so, it's not to the author's benefit, therefore making it evil and nasty and bad. Even going so far as to accuse Trump of acting according to his self-interest. Even though everyone throughout history has been acting according to their self-interest their entire life. But the overarching idea is that because Trump hasn't victimized people enough, he must be an anarchist. Deliberately transforming the United States into a society without any rules whatsoever. Or at least that's the impression of anarchism that they want to project. Make you think anarchists want chaos, or even if they don't want chaos, that it will be the result of it. It's very conventional thinking, and does not take into account people's self-interest in not wanting to live in a Hobbesian state of perpetual civil war. Thus, guaranteeing that through praxeology alone, we can determine that social order would arise spontaneously in society with no need of an overarching authority to impose it. Meanwhile, it's statism that actually results in chaos. It makes social norms and rules arbitrary, according to the whims of legislators and their enforcers. Through their monopoly on arbitration, there is a conflict of interest when a case against a state actor is brought into a court that is also run by state actors. A feudal peasant may very well attempt to sue the baron and have the case adjudicated by one of the baron's employees, yet we would all recognize that as absolutely ridiculous and a travesty of justice. Yet when the state does this very thing, nobody seems to notice. The purpose of a state is to arbitrate conflict and provide a service of protection against aggressors, but the state itself engages in theft, murder, and coercion, and can't not do so to maintain its existence. Said existence undermines the purpose of a state. The only way to get around these inconsistencies is by appealing to logical fallacies, circular reasoning, or logical subjectivism, in which case, support for the state has left the realm of logic and reason. It is now based entirely on superstitious dogma. Furthermore, the rioters do not want chaos. I'm not talking about peaceful protesters, I mean the honest-to-goodness rioters. What they want is justice, restitution for previous grievances acted against them, both perceived and actual. They're not going about it the right way, since vandalizing and stealing private property is also unjust. However, I can guarantee you 99% of them aren't even anarchists, and their response to being asked about a voluntary stateless society would be, "But what about the roads?" All this aside, what we can glean from this conventional, mainstream non-understanding of anarchy is a method for partyarchists to smear their political opponents. It's not the first time the term is used as a smear. If my recollection serves, it first appeared in 17th century France, and was largely used the same way it is here. The term is meant to provoke irrational feelings of anxiety, and by attaching the label to one's political opponent, they can make said opponent the source of that anxiety, manipulating people into conflating their interest with the statist priest who promises to protect them from the Hobbesian perpetual war that the opponent has been associated with. It's really nothing new. The core of it is political attacks. Since anarchy is the buzzword of this month's news cycle, I figured it's worth addressing. Us principled anarchists can spot people misusing the term a mile away, and anyone who actually knows about the subject shouldn't be fooled. If you want to know more about our thoughts on the riots, check out the video Black Propaganda Matters posted just a few days ago at the time of this recording. The only thing worth adding? Well, the government's gonna give a massive bailout to businesses after this is over that will be paid in digital fiat money. This Fed coin, as I will call it, will not only unmoor the Fed from any restraint on money printing it otherwise had, but will be malware. Any transaction ever used with FedCoin will be monitored, traced, and archived by the NSA, and because businesses have been hit hard by the twin crises of the coronavirus lockdowns and the riots, you can guarantee they have a very strong incentive to accept this digital currency. On the plus side, if the state is this desperate to keep the lights on for another 5 minutes, it means they're screwed. Questions, comments, critique? Leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.